So again, my name is Luis Vasquez. I'm the co-founder and managing director here at Rainbow Labs. I'll share a little bit of my story because I always think it's important as we talk about how did Rainbow Labs get here. Catholic Christian family. I remember at a very, very young age how different I felt. And there was some sense of understanding, but a lot of, well, we don't have to quite talk about it. Like, we know it, we hear it, we see it, but let's not bring it out to our family members. And that's kind of the way I just kind of lived. And that was like, I felt loved. And, I will tell you, my mother is my best friend and the person that I have many, many conversations with. But there was growing up that there was that. And now sometimes I really do understand when parents are like, I just want the best for my kids and I want to create, I want to keep them out of harm's way. And sometimes they think by avoiding the conversation that it's gonna, cure the rest of the problems that come for teenagers. But after that, I ended up joining the Navy, which ironically enough, went and served 12 years under the don't ask, don't tell policy. For a long time, again, I didn't even think of the impact. And now through a lot of therapy, have realized that actually that was another part of suppression. This need to be like, you can serve, but just don't bring that identity to the forefront. Then spent a lot of time in youth development. I'm passionate about serving young folks. I've done everything from program coordinator to coaching to program coordinator to creating spaces for youth. And recently, just maybe the last 5 years is where I really started to look at my queer identity and thought, God, how do I use, in the past, I've used my privilege to hide and let the fight be for them and not for us. And so there was guilt that came up, but then also a lot of opportunity to say, you know what I have learned is great and it's positive and I've served others in other ways, but I now unapologetically do really serve our young queer folks. And, one of my mantras has been, I get to redefine masculinity for myself and for others. I'm 6, you can't tell, but I'm 6'3", I'm 240 pounds. When I walk into a space, I play football, I play soccer, I play golf. And for a long time, I kind of just hit that. And so now today, really, that is my one mission. It's to ensure that all youth have one space, and as caring adults, how do we better educate ourselves? How do we better create these spaces for our young folks to see? I'm going to pass it over to Maria to introduce herself and tell her a little bit of a story, and then I'll tell you about Rainbow Labs. Maria, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Luis. So my name is Maria. As you all know, I was born here in LA, but I grew up in Riverside. And as you might have heard, that's where the legislation that they're trying to pass about outing youth in schools. And so that's been really heartbreaking to see because that's my hometown. And so I've been emailing and calling legislators about it. But growing up for me, sort of a similar story to Luis. I grew up in a Catholic household. Since I was very young, I knew that I was queer. I knew that I liked boys and girls since I was very, very young, but I knew that that was wrong. I once found a book in my mom's room about being gay and why it's wrong. And so from that moment on, I knew that I wouldn't be able to talk about it. And so I really hid that part of my identity up until college. And then I started dating someone and I wanted them to meet my family because I am close to my family, but they just didn't really know that part of me. And so I ended up coming out to my mom on the phone because I was too scared to do it in person. I knew that she would accept me, but I didn't really know how the reaction would be. And sort of similar story to Louise. She's like, I accept you, I love you, but just keep the secret. Don't say it out loud. Don't post about it. You don't have to tell other family members about it. This can just be for you and who you love. And so always really internalizing that doubt about my identity and who I am and not being able to fully be proud of who I am and having to compartmentalize that part of myself was very hard. And I remember, and as you heard, my minor was in LGBTQ studies. And when I told my mom that I was going to minor in that, she's like, why don't you minor in something that's a little bit more useful? And so there was always these little things that she would say that made me doubt myself. But now I am able to be fully out. I work at an out organization. This is not something that I thought that I would be doing after college. I always knew that I wanted to work in the mental health field, but being a part of a queer organization was something that if you told me in high school, I would have been no, probably not. But it's been really, really life-changing. This is my first time working with youth as well. I've been here for about 1.5 years, and the youth have absolutely changed my life. They're some of the greatest people ever. Something that Luis always says is mentor one youth, change 2 lives. lives. And it absolutely is true. A lot of the youth have absolutely changed my life. And so something that I'm very passionate about is being able to educate and inform parents and especially educators and folks who just might not know, because I feel like a lot of it is like, it's not that folks don't want to learn, it's just that they don't have the opportunity to, or don't always have the resources to be able to learn. And so thank you so much for being here. I know that just by showing up, it means the world to your youth or whoever it is that you're here for. And so just thank you for taking the initiative to be here and listen and be able to find support. And I know that that would have really helped me when I was younger.
Thank you, Maria. Yeah, and we have a powerhouse of a team that continues to go into trenches and try to figure out the best solutions for our youth. So going back to Rainbow Labs, a little bit of an overview of Rainbow Labs. In being in youth development for 15 years plus, I saw a lot of success, right? There's a lot of innovation. There was a lot of making sure that we were creating innovative programming. And one of the biggest deficits that I saw, always wondered, was why is the LGBTQ group kind of left behind? It's almost felt like them and us, them and others. And a lot of the times it was, and after doing focus groups, it was teachers, families, stakeholders, folks didn't quite understand where to get started. And so the first thing that we did is we went out and did focus groups, right? We don't want to duplicate the programs. We don't want to duplicate the systems. We want to be able to uplift others. And so there was many findings where we talked to families, but 3 big things that kind of came out of that really helped guide the direction we're going to build out the organization. One, kids just want to be kids. I'm sure you all know this in this space, right? Kids, specifically queer kids, they don't always have to be the advocate. They don't always want to be the mature one in the room. They don't always have to be the one that wears a flag on their back. And so that was really a big thing for kids to say, I want to be able to have a space. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a GSA, but I want a space that I can really call my own. The second thing that really came up was about being able to have access to other things. Many other youth have like skateboarding and arts and guitar lessons and all the things, and youth said, I want to be able to feel safe and I want to be able to have access to these things. Another big thing that came out is I just want to have fun. I want to be able to see others in the space and not feel threatened, or for them to feel threatened for me. And then lastly, a very big one that came up is I want a caring adult that shows up for me. They didn't quite use those words, but it is, I want somebody that consistently shows up for me, and I can have conversations about going to college. I can have conversations about same gender relationships. I can talk about my pronouns. I want somebody that can show up for me. And truly, and as a PSA, you said they don't need to look like me. They don't need to have they don't have to be the same gender, same sexual orientation. They just need to show up consistently for me. And so for us at Rainbow Labs, that was important pieces of information. Let's go out and find it. As we were launching our programs, we also heard from kids, come to us, come find us, come into my community, come into my classroom. We heard of, there's a lot of great organizations, I'm sure you guys know, like the Trevor Project, incredible resource, but they're a crisis hotline. And so you really got to be a crisis to get there. A lot of the youth that we serve are Latinx, and they don't translate anything in Spanish. So being able to partner with Trevor Project and say, can we create a resource where we send families to you when they're there, and if they're not quite there, you could send us back when they're in LA County. GSAs, also incredible organizations. GSAs are what used to be called Gay Straight Alliances. I think now they're called, Maria, what are they called now?
Gender Sexuality Alliance, and it changes like school per school what they're called.
And that is, that is what like historically we know as part of a club. What was different about them is that they are volunteer based. So a teacher kind of volunteers, and that looks different, like Maria just said, from site to site. And youth, with their self-awareness, said, we want something that's consistent, that's their structured time, but also informal time. And so again, partnering with GSAs to say, here is the curriculum that we can help build 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and be able to bring that into schools. And then the last one is the LGBTQ centers, incredibly well-resourced, a lot of money, well funded on the ground and doing incredible work. But from a lot of our youth, we heard they're far. And for LA County, we have, West Hollywood, we have Long Beach, and a lot of the youth in South LA, in East LA, having to travel hour and a half to these sites, then some of the youth not telling their parents, and then having to be there for an hour and a half, literally maybe sometimes being gone from home for 4, 5, 6 hours. Great resource, but how do we then bring that to them? And that's really what Rainbow Labs was really born created. Let's partner with the folks that are on the ground, that are already doing some incredible work, and be able to educate the teachers, educate the administrators, educate the peers. And it's taken some work. We still see some stuff on the ground, but I think that is really the model. We want to be able to build that and be able to bridge what that could look like. We currently are serving about, I would say about 180 youth across all programs. And in a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about what programs look like. But before we do that, I want to be able to share a video for you all, for you to be able to learn a little bit more, because sometimes a video is easier to learn from. So let me get that up and running for you all. Thank you for bearing with me.
Dr. D.
We see that youth of color in the LGBTQ community are most underrepresented. We see that they're greatly under-resourced. On the other side of the coin, mentoring is also a huge lack. And so as we sort of talk about within Rainbow Lab, for every 5,000 youth mentoring programs across the US, only 5 focus on LGBTQ kids.
The mission of Rainbow Labs is really to elevate voices, to create a space, to make a seat at the table for all of marginalized LGBTQ youth that are in this inner city communities. How do we ensure that we translate things in Spanish, that we create a space for parents, that we create a space for folks that look like our kids and look like the parents?
Wait, is it frozen?
Yeah, I think when you try to make it full screen, it froze.
Oh, did I leave you guys that far back?
Yes.
Well, we're hearing it, but we're not seeing the video.
Oh no. Let's see. Let's see if we can try that one more time. I'm so sorry. We're gonna try this one more time. Let's see.
I think just try to play it without going full screen, because I think that's where it glitches out.
LGBTQ community are most underrepresented. We see that they're greatly.
No? Okay. Sorry, y'all. So we're gonna see. Let's see. We'll have to do it small screen. Let's see.
Resource. On the other side of the coin, mentoring is also a huge lack. And so as we sort of talk about within Rainbow Lab, for every 5,000 youth mentoring programs across the US, only 5 focus on LGBTQ kids.
The mission of Rainbow Labs is really to elevate voices, to create a space, to make a seat at the table for all of marginalized LGBTQ youth that are in this inner city communities. How do we ensure that we translate things in Spanish, that we create a space for parents, that we create a space for folks that look like our kids and look like the parents?
Rainbow Lab quiere darle a las comunidades latinas educación acerca de cómo aceptar a nuestros niños y adolescentes que tienen esta condición gay.
As a young person, it's important to have this safe space that Rainbow Labs provides, because not many people have that privilege and opportunity. So I would love to take advantage of it, knowing that other people wish that they could take advantage of it as well. Seeing other people identifying as queer or part of the LGBT community, it's a great feeling, because I know there's people out there like me. So, I have that sense of empathy, and it's awesome when you can empathize with many people,
The only way we're going to be able to understand is by having these conversations, allowing spaces for kids to be who they want to be. And so being able to create a mentorship program that then really can elevate voices of LGBTQ plus youth, and being able to bridge that to ensure that success looks like whatever they want to do after our mentoring program.
no idea what it was going to be going into it at all. All the mentors were so amazing, and I didn't even really know that I needed a mentor until I had one.
The reality is, if kids don't have mentors, your life can look much different.
So I think it's important, especially during these formative years when people are teenagers, which is already a time when you can naturally fall into empathy and boredom, to have someone look at you, especially someone older and other people your age, be like, wait, what? Oh, that's crazy interesting. Please tell me more about that. Because it reminds you that you're the spark, right?
To young queer kids looking for mentors, that you should come to Rainbow Lab because they bring the heat. Like, they bring everything you need and everything you want to see.
Relation to sharing who they are in everything they put out in the world. Over time, the world can wear that instinct down. The world, if you hear the wrong voices, can make you feel sometimes like you're just a cog, right? You're a variable.
I think that community is important because if you feel like you're on the outside or something and you come with somebody who you might relate to, it just helps you feel less isolated and kind of helps you a lot. For me, it's helped me to deal with things that I've thought maybe were just weird about me, and I've realized that they aren't, and a lot of people experience them as well.
When I see a rainbow, it like brightens up your day. It brightens up your life. My hope is for the young people that we are that rainbow at the end of a storm, right? It is not easy being non-gender conforming. It's not easy being lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or any way that you identify that is not in a heteronormative society. So I'm just happy that we'll be able to provide that space after some of those hard times.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, so a couple of more points as we continue to have this conversation. We wanted to ensure that the next generation of youth, we build the community, and still you guys see across the country in 2023,
Sorry, it's frozen again at a loading screen.
Oh, well, let's see if it loads. That's so weird. Not sure why it's doing that. But yeah, we want to we'll figure it out in a second. But we want to make sure that even today, Maria will talk a little bit about the youth council. Our youth are being impacted by what they see on Instagram, on social media, and we need to be having these conversations about like anti-trans bills, going to college, having a mentor, having your first breakup, and really at the core of what this is, it is being able to build a mentorship relationship with caring adults that are going to tell you you're going to be okay, and we can continue to build on this together. So thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it back to Maria.
Yes, so I think we're going to start with the mentoring model, right, slideshow or slide? So I'll talk a little bit about our mentoring model. So usually when folks think about mentorship, you think of the typical like big brothers, big sister mentorship, where it's like a year, 2 years long, over extended period of time. But we pivoted from that long-term commitment mentorship model. And instead we are using this new social work model called Hello Goodbye, where mentors and mentees only interact through our programming. This really values the quality over the quantity of time, and this ensures healthy boundaries. It prevents mentor burnout, and it sets realistic expectations from the start. We hear from a lot of mentors that it's really hard to be able to commit to something for such a long time, and then also boundaries are really hard and sticky when it gets too long. And so Luis said that he's heard from different mentors that some youth call their mentors at like 1 a.m. to see if they could do their laundry or some random things like that. And so we really want to set some healthy boundaries for the youth and for the mentors. And so when they're in our program, they're allowed to talk to their mentor during their program, ask any questions that they might have. But then after our program ends, then there will be no communication between the mentor and the mentee through Rainbow Labs. We do have some of like in our youth council, we have one of our youth who speaks to their mentor from last year, just like on the side, but that's not something that Rainbow Labs facilitates. That's something like if the mentor and mentee want to continue that relationship after the program, then that's something that they would have a conversation about. So that's a little bit about the mentoring model and how what we do is different than typical mentorship. And now I'll talk a little bit about our programming. So our youth council program is the program that I help run. It is a 9-month program. It goes from October to June, and it's our longest program. It's made up of 13 youth attending middle or high school in LA County. We meet 3 times a month, once in person on Saturday and twice virtually. They also get paid to be on this program. We teach them about things like financial literacy, college readiness, queer community and history, social emotional learning, and I think there's one more, but I'm forgetting it. Oh, workforce development or college career. I don't know which one I said or which one I missed. But we teach them about these things, and then they also help us with programming. And so back in December, we had a meeting with them. A lot of them have been in other programs as well. And so we asked them, what do you like? What don't you like? What would you like to see in the future? And so since we asked them these things, since we ask a lot of them, that is why we pay them to be on this youth council. And that is really one of our longest programs, like I said, which is 9 months. Right now we're in the middle of it, and we're going to end in June, and it goes by so fast. But that's our youth council program. The next program that we're doing is our storytelling program. So we actually have 2 programs running right now. It's our first time being completely in person. Before, our storytelling programs are virtual. And so we have a program in East LA, which is an after school from 3:30 to 5. And then we have one in South LA, which is actually during school, during their advisory class in the morning. And that is from, I believe, 8 to 8:45, which is like 45 minutes. And for both of them, we meet twice a week. With a storytelling program, it's about 12 weeks long. And then we also have some field trips in between. And so for South LA, 2 weeks ago, we went to the Watts Labor Community Advocacy something. Sorry, it's a long acronym. I kind of forgot it. But it was this really, really amazing space that was just like 5 minutes down the road from their school, where the youth got to learn about history. They got to see a really beautiful space. They got to tour. They got to share some stories. We did a panel on storytelling. And so we really are able to show the youth some resources. And the purpose of the storytelling program is to be able to craft their own narratives. And so we really want them to share at the end, but we don't ever force anyone to share. A lot of the times it does end up about being like coming out or their identity, but sometimes it's just about like being chased by an ostrich at a farm in Mexico when you were younger. And so any kind of story, we really encourage the youth to share. And then for this, we do group mentoring. I forgot to mention the Youth Council is the only program that we do one-on-one mentoring with, but for all of our other programs, we actually do group mentoring. And so this really gives a space to give the mentor, if they ever have an emergency, if they can't make it to program, then we have somebody else who will be there in the place of them. Like Luis said, something that's really important to our youth is having consistent adults. And so if someone can't be there, then we have somebody else who will still be there, still be attentive, and be able to be there with the youth. So for those programs, we have about like 2 mentors per 5 to 6 youth. And we are in the middle of that program as well, and we're going to end in like the middle of May, and it's going really well. The in-person is really amazing. East LA is a little bit harder, but more to come, more to talk about in terms of how these programs are doing. The next thing that we're doing is our sports clinics. We are doing these sports clinics all around LA. We had one a few weeks ago where we did basketball and this new game called Life 360. We're doing one this month with one of the with some cheerleaders and the GSA and a softball team. And we're going to have a dance class we're going to have a dance class and show them some dance. Sports historically always haven't been the safest place for queer youth, and so we really want to make sure that we want to have some inclusive places. We also invite different queer teams, and so there's like a queer soccer team, there's a queer basketball team, and so we invite other older queer adults who are in sports so that the youth are able to see that there's a possibility to play sports that isn't always competitive, and it doesn't always have to be in a way that makes it feel unsafe. And then the last program that's actually coming up is our One Bold Summer program. This is our program that is fully virtual, and so it is open to all of the youth over LA County. It is virtual for about like 9 weeks, but we do have 3 in-person field trips. We have a beginning event, we have an ending event, and then we'll have something in the middle. And we have mentors for that as well, all group mentoring again. And we will be doing a storytelling and accelerator lab. So storytelling for, like I mentioned before, which is about like 4 weeks. And then our accelerator lab is when the youth get to work together and create something. So last year, some of the youth created like a community center. Some of the youth created a zine. Some created a website about pronouns and different identities and things like that. And so it really gives the youth a chance to work together and create something tangible to walk away with after the program. And here are actually some pictures from some of our different programs. So on the left is at the end of our storytelling lab last year. That's one of our youth who is also in our youth council. Their name is Diego, and they told a story about how the arts have impacted them. And they did a folklorico dance in a dress, and it was really, really special. Typically, for those who don't know, folklorico is a very gendered dance where the women wear dresses and the men wear suits. And so it was really cool to see Diego up there wearing a dress, spinning and doing all these twirls with their dress. I think that was one of the first time that they performed in front of an audience. And so it was very, very special for them to perform for us. And then at the right, we have one of the sports clinics that we did in East LA, where we had a bunch of queer mentors and queer youth come, and we played dodgeball, we played softball, we played soccer. And again, just another way to try to encourage youth to be active and to have these different team working abilities in a safe and inclusive way. And then I mentioned some of our upcoming programs. And so the next sports day will be partnering with Mendez High School, which is in East LA, and we're going to be doing a dance class. The next program, like I mentioned, is our One Volt Summer program. So if any of your youth are between the ages of 13 and 18 years old, our applications open in May, but I believe it is live on our website now, and that is LA County-wide. Like I mentioned, it's virtual, and also all of our programs are free. None of our programs have a cost, and so you won't have to pay for any of our programs. And then the next thing is our softball team, which is actually in partnership with the Dodgers. And so youth from 14 to 17 years old, applications open in May. It's located in East LA, and that's where the practices will be. Practices are Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then the game days are Saturdays. I believe that program starts in July and it goes until August. And then our ongoing program that we have is our virtual monthly meetings, which is hosted by my coworker, Adri. So those are 13 and 18 years old, where they have formal and informal time. And that's the first Wednesday of every month on Zoom from 5 to 6:30 p.m. And so it's tomorrow is our meeting. And so if any of your youth are interested in coming, which is good, it's going to be a support meeting for, as we were talking about earlier, all of the anti-trans legislation. So we're going to be giving some space for support. We're going to be talking about some resources, and then also talking about some things that we can maybe do in the future, and things that we can do to support some of our trans brothers and sisters. And I will pass it back over to Luis.
Thank you, Maria. Listen, first off, y'all, I'm very embarrassed that I can't figure out, it's like I'm starting to age myself. I can't figure out how to make it bigger without showing the side, but as we all know, it's been 3 years, but we're still figuring it out. Just one of the things that I want folks to walk away with, one is learn about the organization. We're doing great work, but the other tangible thing, I always want to, what's the thing I'm taking with me? And I think it's just a confirmation, and we'll open it up for Q&A right after this. But why are pronouns so important? Why is LGBTQ 101 so important? I'm sure people like you guys get it. You understand why we have to ensure that we validate, that we uplift our young folks, even if they're, I hear, 5-year, or not 5-year-olds, I was maybe 8 or 7-year-olds that really are starting to identify with pronouns. Our job is not here to figure out if they do or do not like it, or if they really identify with that. Our role as mentors, community members, and just humans seeing humans is validating. And so today, we know that, research shows that number of 12 to 18 who identifies LGBTQ are rising at faster pace than any other demographic. I've heard adults say, it's brainwashing that's happening. No, it's actually us as a community saying we're not allowing this anymore. And so that's only going to create safer spaces for our young folks to be able to come out and say how they're feeling. Also, another big thing is talking about like transition. sometimes in our community, I've heard people say, buy now, gay later. That could be toxic and it's not helpful. So how do we ensure that if somebody does tell you they like pineapple today and maybe in a year they don't like pineapple no more, great. If they're bi today and they're lesbian or they're trans or they've transitioned, that's perfectly fine. And some of the words that we can say is thank you for sharing that, because it takes a lot. I see you. I want to validate you. Please come to me and have these conversations because I'll always be here. And then the flip side of that is, listen, I run an organization, LGBTQ organization, and I still get it wrong sometimes. But I think creating the skill to say, my fault, I will learn from it, or I didn't mean to say that. It's important. And also attached to that is youth don't want people to make a big deal about it. If you got it wrong, then the next time be cognizant and try as much as possible. It's just like a name. The faster you can get the pronouns right, the faster you get a name right, the more accepting and love the kid feels. GLSEN study shows that 4 in 5 LGBTQ youth do not see positive representation in their curriculum. 9 in 10 experience harassment or assault at school, and almost a third of miss classes because they feel unsafe and uncomfortable. A lot of districts are really struggling with attendance. Ironically enough, some of the data showed that even if some of the homes weren't safe, they sometimes felt safer than school because of bullying, because of all these issues that are happening at school. And so if we can continue to help youth come back to school, create these programmings and have caring adults, because we know when youth feel safe and they have a caring adult in their life, they are more willing to take chances. More chances taken equal to success. More success means they will try more things. And so it's that basic. Create a safe space, youth will take more chances. Trevor Project also had a study, 10% of high school youth identify as LGBTQ. In a district like LAUSD, 10% equals to about, I think, 82,000 youth across the LAUSD, and there's not a lot of big programs around it. So being able to create these programs is dire, it is important. We had an activity around pronouns, but I think everybody here understands it. I will open it up now. If folks have a question, a thought around specifically about pronouns and the importance of it, or thoughts you've had, or something you've recently learned that you would like to share with us in this space. I open the mic up for folks that want to share. LGBTQ. Thank you. As an organization, we have found really three trainings that I think are of value and are important. We believe in LGBTQ 101. We want to make sure that, like, frontline staff, there are a lot of folks that are passionate about youth development, just organizations they work for, community, they just haven't had the chance to explore these trainings. And so it's less about, for us, it's less about the dollars that you can make or charge. It's more about creating allyship across the board. We know that that's how we're going to continue to grow, is by creating an ally. I don't need to have walked in your shoes to understand you, because we are, as we all know, we're more alike than not. And so being able to do that, also, program design, being able to be very intentional on how we're serving our young folks with intention, with caring adults, and being able to be outcomes based. And then last thing is, queer history, Trans 101. We have an incredible Jake that's trans himself and has been teaching across the country. And how do we create safer spaces specifically for trans, because our brothers and sisters, they're in a battle with us, and we got to make sure that we also create a protection for all of us. And then, mental health, it's an important conversation that our youth are having, and we need to continue to stay with them to be able to help guide them. That is an important training. If there's ever any thoughts around this, or how do we continue to collaborate, I think that's a great way for, like, next steps. Maria, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yes, so I just wanted to share a few resources for you all. The first one is for the Center for Trans Youth Health and Development at the Children's Hospital LA. We actually took a tour there in March with our youth council, and it's definitely one of our youth council's favorite places to tour. They offer multiple services such as gender affirming medical treatment and mental health services, peer support groups, family support groups, family support services to outside resources, and a lot of other programs. And if I can also, we can also send all of these links later so that they can be shared with you all. So that's the first one, the Center for Trans Youth Health. The next one is Models of Pride. So Models of Pride is the world's largest free conference for LGBTQ youth and allies aged 24 and under. The conference also includes the Parents and Professionals Institute, which offers family members, educators, professionals, and other adult supporters an opportunity to join and have a lot of different conversations. I believe this happens in October, but I know it happens like in the fall time. But on their website, you could also find a lot of resources for LGBTQ youth, and they also have a calendar that provides different information about different events that are going on within LA County. And then the last thing is Equality California. So Equality California is the nation's largest statewide LGBTQ civil rights organization. It provides resources for COVID, monkeypox, HIV, and PrEP. So Equality California, if you ever have some troubles with school, maybe schools aren't accepting, if you ever need resources for monkeypox, HIV, and PrEP, they're a really great organization to reach out to. So those are some of the resources that we wanted to share with you all today.
Awesome. So two last things. First, how to follow us. It's a great thing. How to get connected with us. I always like to share specifically our Instagram. Even if we don't know who's following us or who's seeing the things that we post, I always encourage adults specifically to share, because you never know what young person is watching. Even if they don't use the resource today, they at least can say, there's something out there for me. And at least they'll be able to go and find when they're ready for it. And so being able to, things like on social media that you can just quickly reshare, that you can send to parents, that you can send to young folks, I think it's always a value. And so if nothing else today, 3 things I want you to walk away with. Follow our Instagram, such an opportunity to continue to see the resources. We have One Bold Summer. In the second, I will put the application on the chat. Please share it with any young person. Which is what is really nice is that it's county based, and we want to have diversity from all over the county and representation. And so if a young person even slightly is interested, please have them apply. If they have questions or anything, in a second you'll see our emails. Have them reach out to us, and I'm more than happy, Maria and the rest of the team is more than happy to answer questions on a 15-minute phone call to get folks loosened up. And lastly, they get to meet other queer folks. A lot of our youth have said, I don't really have any gay friends outside of school. Like, what are other queer people doing? And so it's a really good place to have a friend. And then lastly is, if you ever come across a young person that is in need of support in any way, we might not have the answers. We're a very small, mighty team, but at the very least, we will always pick up the phone and give an opportunity for folks to connect them with other resources. So thank you so much. I know it's been 40 minutes, but I'm going to open it up for questions. What thoughts, questions, concerns are coming up for folks? And conscious of time, we got like about 5 minutes, but what are thoughts are coming up?